यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय धारी हरि यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी चारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा नील माधव राधा नील माधव राधे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सप्त श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सप्त श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवत पुराण की जय। बोल प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembly devotees. All glories to the assembly devotees. All glories to the assembly devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nahistuki Shrunavatam Shrakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridiyasto hi abhadrani Vidyunoti Shruhatsatam. Hare Krishna, everybody. So welcome this morning to the Srimad Bhagavatam class discussion. In the text we recited, the three texts we recited, first we are offering the obeisances to the appropriate deities, and then the last two verses it says, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a Krishna himself, there is no difference between Bhagavatam and a Krishna, and the activities of his Krishna, devotees, then whatever we have accumulated in our heart from the lives, so many, maybe thousands, hundreds, whatever lives, we have accumulated that lust or that desire to enjoy the material world, the material energy, that lust, that dirt gets washed away slowly and slowly and leads us to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his wonderful devotional service. So that's the meaning of those last two verses, or gist of it. So today we are going to talk about text number 47. We don't have a board here for a reason. We have been reading on a Canto 11, Chapter 2, text number 47 is today. Okay, I'm going to recite the text and I read the translation and I come to the discussion depending on at the end of the, toward the end of the class. Why? Because today is a wonderful day. Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, right? Everybody knows that. Also, today, two wonderful sadhus or Vaishnavas. One is the Sivananda Sena and the other one is Svarup Damodar. Both of theirs disappearance days today. Okay? And a little bit about, I'm going to say about my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Radha Govinda Goswami Maharaj. His Vyasa Puja is today. So there are so many things there, so we will do the best we can in terms of the time, okay? So I'm going to recite the text as I said and read the translation, and then I will start with the Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, okay? Archayam eva haraye okay, that's fine. Pujam yah shraddaye hate na tad bhakteshu chanyeshu sa bhaktah prakutah smrita archayam eva haraye pujam yah shraddaye hate na tad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakuta smrita archayameva haraye pujam yashraddaye hate na tad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakuta smrita. So I'm going to now read the translation by his disciple of his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not have a behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrut bhakta, a materialistic devotee. That's another name for it, and is considered to be the lowest position. Okay, it's called neophyte devotee. We have heard that term over and over again. So there are three types of devotees that's being discussed by the 9 Yogeshwar. One of the Yogeshwar is discussing this, and this is the katha that is going on between Maharaj Nimi and the 9 Yogeshwar. 9 Yogeshwar visits Nimi Maharaj, and that's where this discussion happens. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to come back to this depending on the time. So next we are going to talk about the Jagannath Puri. I wish we were there, right? We all wish we were there. Okay. In India, we have heard, most of us have heard, I'm sure all of us have heard, except the person who has been born here, the 4 main dhams in India, in the Bharatvarsh. Okay? One is in the north part of India, there is Badrikashram. Okay? And then one on the east side is what? Jagannath Puri. South, Rameshwaram, and on the west, Dwarka. So these 4 dhams. And when I was growing up, I remember, when people get old, they, do the bus, rent a bus, and the group goes on all these pilgrimages and these 4 places. They at least want to go there one time in their lifetime to purify themselves, right? This is a wonderful. All these 4 places are very wonderful, and Purushottam Kshetra, that is where the Jagannath Puri is, where this Lord Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra, their deities are there, and that is so wonderful place to go to. Okay. We heard yesterday from Radha Krishna Prabhu, Gundicha temple cleaning, and as a part of that we heard a little bit about the pastime, about the Jagannath Puri and the Rath Yatra. Today I'm going to talk about the history of the deity. We have all heard it, but when we hear it again and again, especially on a day like today, it's all more meaningful and it's a purifying to us. Okay? So Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra, the deity that we see, if we have seen it, and I'm sure we have seen it at least on the internet, if you have not seen it in a person, those deity forms, how did they come about? So there is a history behind it. I don't have enough time to go through the complete history, but I'm going to summarize it, okay? So I'll leave a little bit in between for you guys for imagination, or for you to go back home and look up into the Chaitanya Charitamrita or in a Bhagavatam, and there is a discussion about this, okay? So Indradyumna Raja, or the king Indradyumna, okay, he wanted to have a deity, okay, and build a temple and have a deity in there. And he was looking for deity Nilamadava, okay. So he sends his messengers all over to find the deity. And to make a long story short about that, one person comes back and finds the deity. King Indradyumna goes to that place but does not retrieve the deity and comes back. And that's where I'm going to pick it up. So Indradyumna Maharaj was so sad, so depressed, that he was ready to give up his life. Okay? So he sits down on a kusa grass and he does the meditation and he says, I'm going to give up my life. Because I cannot have Lord in my temple. I want to build a temple and I want to have a Lord in my temple, deity of that. So at that night, Lord comes in his dream and he says, Indradyumna, okay, be patient. I am going to come to you in the form of Daru Brahman. Daru Brahman means a wood. Okay? Long piece of wood. I'm going to come to you in that form. And in that form, from that form, you can have a deity made and have it installed. Okay, so Indradyumna was very pleased, very happy. Okay? So next day, with his all entourage and everybody goes to the place where Lord has indicated where he will come as a Daru Brahman. So he goes there and Lord, behold, Daru Brahman was there. Okay? So Indradyumna Maharaj retrieves that Daru Brahman. In material terminology, we would call it a wood, long trunk of a wood. So he retrieves the Daru Brahman and brings it to appropriate designated place. And at that place, after putting down Daru Brahman, then he tries to find a sculpture, somebody who can carve the deity. So number of people comes. Who would not come to do that type of work, right? So number of people come to do the carving, but when they start the chiseling, the chisel will break. And nobody could do anything about it, okay? So Indradyumna Maharaj at that point was very disappointed. And again, there is, like I said, there is a long pastime in between there. But then, by worshipping Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord himself comes in the form of Brahman, in the disguise of Brahman, okay? And according to Naradiya Purana, actually the carving was done by Vishwakarma, okay? So he makes a deal with Indradyumna Maharaj. He says, give me 21 days and I will have the deity carved. But the condition is you cannot disturb me. You cannot open the door, you cannot peek in it, seeing what's going on, So Indradyumna Maharaj agrees. He says, okay, you have all the privacy you need, we will not disturb you. But Indradyumna Maharaj, what did he do? Every day he would go by and say, well, make sure that there was some noise coming out, like carving, chiseling or whatever. So for 14 days passed. Okay? At the end of 14 days, one day he was just passing by Indradyumna Maharaj. He did not hear any noise. Okay? And he lost patience. He said, something is going on. Nobody's carving the deity. So he opens the door. And when he opens the door, he does not see anybody in there. What does he see? He sees three deities. And that's same form that we see on Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra, in Puri, and also in a number of our Iskcon temple where they have those deities of Subhadra, Baldev, and Lord Krishna. Okay? So that's the deity. So Indradyumna Maharaj was still not happy. He says, I have offended you by opening the door. And I am the guilty one. And these deities did not get carved completed because Lord does not have a finger as we see it on the Jagannath and on the legs also. So he says, I offended you. And because I offended you, all this did not get completed. And again, he decides to give up his life. So at that time again, Lord comes in his dream and he says, this was my intent. This was my desire. This was my desire to create more love for me so that you can open the door and you can see it. He says, I don't have to have all those fingers and everything. He says, I can accept whatever my devotee offers me with love and a devotion just by any of my organ, any of my body part. I can take that. Okay? And he says, you install this deity and you worship. That's how the deity of the Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra came in. Okay? Hari Bol. Okay, so Sivananda Sen, we're going to talk about Sivananda Sen's appearance. Disappearance, sorry. By the way, if you ever go to Jagannath Puri on a day of Rath Yatra, make sure you have a bodyguard with you. Because what I have heard, there are millions of people there. And my brother went there one time on that day. He did not dare to come down. They even rent a space on the roof. The people who have the shops or houses around on the road, they rent a space on the roof. He rented a space on the roof and they did a darshan from the top. Okay? Except Radha Krishna Prabhu dared to go in there, and he, as he explained yesterday, he got a chance to pull the rope of the Jagannath. So he was fortunate, going back to Godhead quickly. Okay. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I got the notes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita about the Sivananda Sen. Sivananda Sen was very close, very, very close associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay? I'm going to read what he says, and as I read, I will discuss it or I will talk about it. Srila Sivananda Sen has been described by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. Okay, so this purport comes from Chaitanya Charitamrita, okay, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj has described about him. Sivananda Sen was a resident of Kumarhatta, which is also known as Hali Shahar, and was a great devotee of the Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's great devotee. About 1.5 miles from Kumarhatta is another village known as Kanchadapada, in which there is a Gaura Gopal deity installed by Sivananda Sen, and that deity is even there today. Okay? Who also established a temple, Krishna Raya, that is still existing. Sivananda Sen was the father of Paramananda Sen. Why is it important here? They say that he was the father of Paramananda Sen, because later on he becomes Kavi Karnapura, and he has written wonderful books about different pastimes. Okay? Who was also known as a Puridas or Kavi Karnapura. Paramananda Sen wrote in his Gaura Ganodes Deepika. This is a book. It's referred so many times actually in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as authoritative book. So he wrote that book, Deepika, that two of the gopis of the Vrindavan, whose former names were Veera and Adhuti, there were two gopis, and those two combined became the Sivananda Sen. So Sivananda Sen appeared as an expansion or combination of these two gopis. Srila Sivananda Sen guided all the devotees of Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya, who went from Bengal to Jagannath Puri, and personally bore all the expenses. He paid all the expenses for those people, devotees to come there. This is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. Sivananda Sen had 3 sons named Chaitanya Das, Ramadas, and Paramanand. As mentioned above, this last son later became Kavi Karnapura and wrote Gaura Gano Des Dipika. His spiritual master was Srinath Pandit, who was Sivananda Sen's priest. Okay. Now, here in the last sentence of this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had Vasudev Datta, somebody named Vasudev Datta, who was managing the finances. And that person was spending too much money. Okay? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, you know, this Vasudev Datta is lavishly spending the money. Sivananda said, now on you are my controller, expense controller, financial controller. So that was his also another duty that he performed for the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now I want to talk about a couple of pastimes. What do we learn from this when we have these devotees, this special appearances or disappearances? What do we learn from this devotee's life? That is very important also here. So in the case of Sivananda Sen, one example or one pastime is, you know, we say that what is a sadhu? Sadhus are always thinking about what? Loka Kalyana, right? They are well-wisher of all the living entities. Okay? They want to do something good for the humans so that they can go back to Godhead. In case of Sivananda Sen, one time he was arranging a travel for Gadadhar Pandit and other devotees from in Bengal. And on their way, okay, he allows one dog to go with him. And that dog, they feed the dog prasadam. Okay. And he wanted that dog to go with him. So on the way, at one river, they needed to cross the river. The boatman says, no, you are not going to bring a dog on my boat. Okay, you can come, but not the dog. So Sivananda Sen negotiates with that person and gives him extra money. Whatever the currency was, there is a special currency at that time, or the coins or whatever they were using. So he gives those extra coins to that and takes that dog with him all the way to Jagannath Puri. Okay? Now, before they reach the Jagannath Puri, one day, Sivananda Sen had to attend some duty. So he was not able to take care of the dog. So the dog, when he came back after finishing his chore or the duty, when he comes back, he was taking the prasadam, or he was offered the prasadam, and he asked a question of his devotees, the assistant, saying, have you fed the dog? Now, the dog was always fed prasadam, okay? This is important. We'll talk about it in a minute. So after asking that question, when he was told that no, they have not fed him, he was so upset. He did not eat. And he went to sleep. Okay? And when he woke up, slept hungry. Next morning when he woke up, the dog was gone. He was so worried about it. But at the same time, he thought that maybe he has gone back to his original place, or, back to Godhead. So when they all arrived in Puri, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's darshan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking the pulp out of the green coconut and offering to a dog, throwing it to the dog, and dog was eating it. Okay? When they saw that dog, the same dog was sitting there. That dog got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, got the mercy of the devotees. And next day, that dog was not there. Even in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not there, and they all believed that he went back to Godhead. Okay. So what do we learn from this pastime? That's the important thing also. Prasadam. Krishna's prasadam is very important. We should always honor prasadam of the Krishna, and we should not accept anything that is not offered to Krishna. That is very important. Okay. Prasadam, there is no difference between prasad and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We all know that, right? We have heard that over and over again. So, dog was fed prasadam. So that's the reason, went back to Godhead. Now, how did he get that? Because of the mercy of Sivananda Sen. Sivananda Sen, Srila Sivananda Sen was a wonderful devotee. Okay? And such a devotee, when you get a mercy from such a devotee, you are going to go back to Godhead. Whether you want it or not, they're kicking and dragging, they will drag you. Okay? Which is a good thing. Okay? So, whenever there is incident in like this, when we learn, we say that sadhus are always merciful to all the living entities, not only just the human, but also to all the living entities, the animals too. When we go to Harinam Sankirtan, or when we are chanting outside, as we walking by the trees and the plants and whatnot, they also benefit from our chanting. Okay? So, devotional service or the devotees association like that, it is a wonderful, wonderful thing that can happen. Okay. Another pastime, and I am sure two people in this room can tell you a lot more pastimes than I can. I'm just reading some of it. And those two people are Krishna Kripa Prabhu and Radha Krishna Prabhu. But we will, depending on time, we will see. Okay. Another pastime of Sivananda Sen is, as I said earlier, he had 3 sons, right? So one time he was making arrangements for travel, and Nityanand Prabhu was with them. Okay, so when they reached some destination, Sivananda Sen's responsibility was to make arrangement, make sure that appropriate housing accommodation was done, prasadam accommodation was done, and so on and so forth. Okay, Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki. Yeah. So, in this particular pastime, when Nityanand Prabhu reached that destination, there was no housing accommodation done for him. And he got very angry. Now, just don't analyze it until I finish this pastime. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityanand Prabhu cursed Sivananda Sen, saying, your son will die. Okay? So, Sivananda Sen's wife was there. And after she heard that curse, she started crying. She says, oh my gosh, all my 3 sons gonna die. And this is terrible. So she went to her husband. Then the Sivananda Sen comes to there. And his wife tells Sivananda Sen, saying, Nityanand Prabhu just cursed our 3 sons and they're going to die. And Sivananda Sen started laughing and he says, why are you crying, woman? If Nityanand Prabhu says 3 sons die, we all are ready to die. If Lord wants to take us back to the Godhead, we are all ready to die. So don't cry about having 3 sons die. Those 3 sons did not die. It was a blessing by Nityanand Prabhu. Okay? It takes a higher level of our realization. I don't have that. To analyze this particular part of it and to understand why he would curse and why is that a blessing for the Sivananda Sen. But this is the kind of things we think about it, that on a special day like this, the sadhus, when they curse you or somebody curse you at that level, that is for our own good. And we know a lot of examples we have in our Bhagavatam. Okay? Next, Svarup Damodar. Svarup Damodar was one of the closest associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Svarup Damodar and Murari Gupta. Actually, Krishnadas Kaviraj says that based on the notes of the Svarup Damodar, he has written the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, he was that close. Okay, Svarup Damodar was an expansion of Visakha Devi Dati, Visakha Devi from a Vrindavan Leela. Okay, so Svarup Damodar, there is a long pastime about that also, but Svarup Damodar was, one of the pastime, was a gatekeeper for all the material, written material or prepared material that were presented to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay? If you write a poem or if you write a pastime or a drama or whatever you write, before it goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it went to Svarup Damodar. Svarup Damodar will read it, would understand, make sure that he analyzes in a what bhava that material is written, and if it was appropriate, then he will present it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one time in this pastime, one Brahmana from Bengal, he wrote a poem for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to read. And he came and presented to Svarup Damodar. Svarup Damodar Prabhu, Svarup Damodar, would not present it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, he would not read it either. And so what happened was, there was an intermediary, I think it's a Bhatt or somebody. Okay, anyway, there was some another devotee who was helping to present that, so he kept after Damodar, Svarup Damodar, and he kept asking him, when are you going to read it and when are you going to present to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And so Svarup Damodar finally, after 3-4 times, the person asked, decided to read it, and after reading, that was read in presence of everybody, means other devotees, and all other devotees were so impressed with that poem, except Svarup Damodar. Svarup Damodar was not happy with that, and he was a little angry, and he asked, what is the meaning of this particular tranza in the poem? He asked the Kavi or the person, Brahmana, who has written that. So Brahmana explains that, and he compares the body of the Jagannath, Lord Jagannath, and body of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, not in a proper way. Okay, one is considered material, one is considered spiritual, and that's what the interpretation or the bhava was by the Svarup Damodar, and that's what made him angry. Okay, so and that's the reason he would not present it, and it was sent back. So what do we learn from this pastime? We should always, always, always listen to somebody who is in this disciplic succession. Why? Because even today, you go on the internet and you type in even Svarup Damodar or Sivananda, Sena, you will get so much junk. Because you and I can write something and put it on the internet and anybody can search it and they can read it. You all know that, right, IT guys? Okay? So we have to be careful what we hear, who we hear from, okay? And that way we can get appropriate information. Okay? Now both of these pastimes or both of these people's information are presented in a very brief way. If you want to, you can go to the Antya Leela in a Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and both of those pastimes are described in a great detail, or both of these personalities are described in a great detail, and you can understand more about it. So I'm going to go to now the next one, His Holiness Radha Govind Goswami Maharaj. Today, His Holiness was born or appeared on the Jagannath Rath Puri Yatra, on the same day. Okay. Today is the 74th appearance day for him. Okay. Little bit I know, based on my interaction with him and my discussion with him, talking to other people. He was born in a town called Khadia. I don't know whether anybody, I'm sure nobody has heard of that. Khadia is a small, very small town in Bengal. Okay. When he was growing up, when they sent him school, instead of going to school, he will skip the school and go in the farm and take a Bhagavatam with him and read a Bhagavatam. Okay. And that's how, from the early childhood, he had such an attachment for Bhagavatam. Two areas. He is well versed in all the literature, Vedic literature, but two areas or two books are his favorite. One is Bhagavatam, of course, because when you talk about Bhagavatam, there is a little bit of bias, I guess, when I say something like this. But when you talk about Bhagavatam, you have to talk about Radha Govinda Maharaj. In Iskcon, if you don't talk about His Holiness Radha Govinda Maharaj and don't relate with the Bhagavatam, something wrong. Because he is the authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? So his favorite book is, his area is the Bhagavatam, and second area is the Ramcharitmanas. Okay? He has done katha actually here in our, in Houston. Yeah, that katha I think was 1 week or 2 weeks or something like that, and I remember attending those in Gauranga Hall. So he has done those kathas here also. Okay. He has done his preferred language, that may be saying mildly, but he really likes to speak in Hindi. Okay. He has given some classes in English. Actually, he has given some classes here in Houston on Bhagavad Gita in English, but mainly he speaks in Hindi. Right now, he lives in Vrindavan, and some people ask this question sometime of me. It's what is happening with Maharaj and where is he? He lives in Vrindavan. He can't travel anymore. Last 2-3 years, especially with COVID and all that, he hasn't gone anywhere except Vrindavan. He wants to go, and he pushes his disciples who are taking care of him to take him to Jagannath Puri. So if he goes anywhere, he goes to Jagannath Puri. So he doesn't travel, but he stays there. He is doing well, when I say well as he was, say, maybe 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago. Okay? His health hasn't improved, hasn't changed, it's the same. But he is able to go with devotees. We get every day photos of Maharaj and his short videos, when they take him around into the Chaurasi Kosh and Vrindavan, different places to do the darshan. So we get his darshan also every day about Radha Govinda Maharaj. So he is, otherwise he's fine. His memory, you talk about memory, when we go to Vrindavan and when I go see him, or when I call him on the phone, first thing he will ask me, and I'm talking a little bit about personal here, personal in the sense what has happened with me. First question he will ask is Radha Kunj Bihari, how is he? आप उनकी सेवा करते हैं ना बराबर? We have a deity, Radha Kunj Bihari at home. He installed that deity for us. So he will always ask that first question. And I'm not exaggerating, that will be his first question. Okay? And the second thing will be, आप उनकी सेवा बराबर कर रहे हैं ना? This will be the second thing. And then he will, and this is where I was coming from about his memory. He will ask, how is Sonal and how is Rupal doing. He will knows my daughter's name and call them by the name. And that's not just with me, but other devotees also. So his memory is sharp. He does not give classes anymore in a Vrindavan temple because he can't keep it in a sync. What to speak one after the another, you know what I'm saying? The material has to flow, right? He's not able to keep that flow. So that's the reason he's not giving the classes in there. When I think about him and how I met with him, and I'll give you a couple of examples. It's just his humility. One time I was not initiated. It was at Hari Leela's home. Hari Leela and I took Maharaj, some devotees home. I don't remember exactly whose. But the plan was that when we came back, it was actually that day was also Rath Yatra day. So the plan was that I will offer him arti. Okay, I offer him arti as a Vyasa Puja. So we came home and he was sitting on a sofa and we brought all the stuff out and I started doing arti. I've not seen Maharaj angry that many times. But that day I can see in his eyes he was not happy at all. The reason he was not happy is he did not like those kind of things. Let me give you another example. Whenever he came our home, we would do the foot bathing, right? And Kamala would bring water, I will bring the plate, and when we come to the living room where he's sitting, he said, you don't need to do this, it's not necessary. And when we insist, he will put his foot, the right foot, in the container, and as soon as we start pouring the water on the toe, he says, that's enough, aur zyada nahi karna hai. It was not that he did not appreciate us, what we were doing. It was his humility. He did not want those type of treatment from the devotees. He always blessed us, but he did not want us to do that. He always told us, worship Krishna. Worship Krishna. Always take the prasadam, as I was saying earlier. Don't take anything that is not offered to Krishna. He always told us that. Not even a garland. And this is specifically happened with me. One time he came to our home and we had a garland made at home. Okay? We were not at that time regular visitor at the temple. Okay? So we made a garland at home, and when the Maharaj came, I went to offer a garland to him, and he says, "Is this garland been offered to deity?" I said, "No, Maharaj." He says, "I don't want it. First you go offer it to Krishna and then I'll take it." Okay? So by these kind of examples, he has taught us so many things. The most important he has taught us is that patience. Okay? Keep doing what you are doing service-wise and chanting, because it's not a one lifetime thing. That even Prabhupada says that. This is a krame. I was listening to his pastime or katha on a 9 Yogeshwar, by the way. I'm going to come back to the 9 Yogeshwar now, the first one. I listened to 9 Yogeshwar katha. Maharaj, I have recording. I must have listened to it more than 50 times. And I'm not exaggerating. It's in my car right now. Anytime I start my car, that katha starts, okay? And I was listening yesterday. As I was doing little exercise, I was listening to it. And during katha, he said, it's Kanishta Bhakta. He says, Kanishta Bhaktas are also the best Bhakta. They are superior Bhakta also. He says, don't think that they are not great Bhakta. Why? He says, krame, they will come to that. And he gives them wonderful examples. He says that a Kanishta Bhakta or regular Bhakta, when you are doing a little bit service or little bit of chanting, even one Mara, he says it automatically gets recorded. Just like when you deposit, he says, $5 to the bank. He didn't use a dollar, but I'm using a dollar. When you deposit $5 in an account today and tomorrow you deposit another $5, what happens? You got $10 now, gets increased. Same way. He says, krame, incrementally, it keeps accumulating. And you will become superior devotee, superior bhakta. Okay? That's what I have to say. If I have said anything that's not acceptable, please forgive me. Anybody else would like to say anything about this, or His Holiness Radha Govinda Goswami Maharaj are welcome. Anybody?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, very wonderful class.
Take it.
And one time I heard Prabhu, one of the Prabhupada disciples' lecture I heard, and he said one time Prabhupada came from the late evening program, and all the brahmacharis sleeping, but one light on, and Prabhupada said, "Who's this lights on? Why somebody is still up?" And then Prabhupada said, "I think that's the Radha Govind, he is reading the Bhagavatam." And then go check who's that. And then another brahmachari went upstairs and checked, and that's a Radha Govind Swami reading the Bhagavatam, night time. And then Prabhupada next day told him, "You always do the Bhagavatam Katha, that's your service." Yeah. So Maharaj always doing Bhagavatam Katha, 7 days, so many 7 days Kathas Maharaj read. So thank you. I want to just add that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And
little bit more. Maharaj simplicity is the great, greatest. Maharaj is just the greatest, great, And Maharaj, he is the, my mother, Guru Maharaj, my mother's spiritual master is Radha Govind Swami, and we went 2 years ago to see Maharaj, and Maharaj gave her a second initiation and give her instruction. It's so wonderful. He said, always read Bhagavad Gita, always hear Prabhupada classes, and read Bhagavatam. These three instructions Maharaj gave. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. He has said this in one of his classes. He said, look, Parikshit Maharaj went back to Godhead by just listening Bhagavatam. Right? So listen to the Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Kubera Prabhu. In the interest of time, we can have as many as people speak, because I try to monitor time. That's the reason I have to do my own time monitoring here.
Just only one incident.
Okay.
When Maharaj was here in early 90s, and he was giving Srimad Bhagavatam classes, not katha, but classes, actually he was doing katha. That time I asked Maharaj, why the Bhagavatam is not written in proper order? I mean, it looks like, to me it was that time in haphazard order. So next day when Maharaj came, he explained the whole Bhagavatam, what is first canto, all the way up to the 12th canto, and he explained why it was written in particular order. So Maharaj knows the flow of the Bhagavatam, all the chapters of the Bhagavatam, just by heart. I was so impressed about Maharaj that time.
Yeah.
It was very nice of you. And whenever we go to Parikrama in Vrindavan Parikrama, Maharaj used to give so many nice classes, so many wonderful pastimes of Lord Krishna, different places.
Yeah.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Thank
Very
you.
nice, Maharaj. Radha Govind Maharaj ki jai.
Maharaj gave a class here in the Houston temple one time on the glories of the Bhagavatam. It's on a Iskcon DesireTrees.com. It's in English. If you want to listen to it, it's a 25 minutes presentation. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna. Haribo. Just a quick point. You mentioned that people go to holy places to be purified. In the Bhagavatam it says, Yasyatma buddhi kunapeti dhatuke, right? People generally think, okay, I'm going to do nonsense all my life, take a bath in the Ganga, and then be purified, go back home and do more nonsense. So, can you talk about that? Say something. I mean, we got limited time, but that's food for thought right there. Maybe, we can't keep doing nonsense and then go take a bath in the Ganga. Haribo, sorry.
Yeah, we were also fortunate to have, I think, when Radha Govinda Maharaj visited Houston, we have, I think, consecutive 45 days of home program.
Right.
Every night. So it's not like just the weekend or something. And I saw that the number of attendances, the people were increasing.
Shri Radha Nil Madhav ki jai.
Haribo. So it was very interesting to see like that despite, like we are trying to keep the home program and people say that, 1 or 2 program a week, otherwise people will not be able to attend. But I witnessed that we hold it for 45 days in different homes, and slowly, in the beginning some less attendance was there, but as it moved forward, more and more people were joining and enjoying, and we can see it. It was so relishing. That's the reason that so many people, despite their workload and whatever their duty was, but they were attending, so that was very nice to see. Radha Govinda Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Anybody else? Srimad Bhagavad Puran ki
Jai.
His Holiness Radha Govind Goswami Maharaj appearance
Jai.
ki all Premanand.
Haribo. Breakfast is being served as we speak. It was cooked by Murli Padmanabhan, who know her, and Devendra and Sumitra Sharma. Raghava Chaitanya, Raghava is there too. So please, it's very tasty and very delicious. So please honor, respect, and relish the mercy. Haribo.